Hey there, saltwater anglers, and welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report. It's your local report, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. This podcast is part of the Great Days Outdoors Network, and each week we're talking with local experts to learn ways we can become better anglers in our pursuits offshore, nearshore, and inshore. And to help keep this amazing fishery healthy and thriving for generations to come, let's remember to protect what we pursue. It's springtime, waters are warming up, and fish are on the move. So let's hear who's making this show possible and then find out what's been biting. Check it out. AFTCO has a gift for our listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. Whether I'm walking the dock or the deck, I love my AFTCO fishing boots. You cannot beat the comfort. And as temps warm up, the Samurai Sun Shirt will keep you cool and protected. To get your coupon code, just text LCBFR to 779-345-2918. You'll get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, guys and girls, welcome to this week's show. I want to shift gears a little bit. I still want to talk fishing, but we're right here at the beginning of the season. A lot of people are in maintenance mode. A lot of people are in planning, buying gear mode, and something that's often forgotten about along the way is safety and education. So I want to bring Mr. Michael Hosang, Fishing for Mortgages, back on the show. Welcome back to the show, man. How we doing?
Oh, hello. Thank you for having me back on. Doing good.
Good, good. Well, whether it was the boat show, the thousands of buckets that we see popping up, you're always around. You're always in our hearts here in the fishing community. So we appreciate everything that you bring to the table for us.
All right, rock and roll. Yeah, I gave away almost I had to make some more like during the boat show in the first 2 days. I didn't even go Sunday and I gave away almost 450 buckets.
That's a lot of buckets. I mean, I think people probably don't, they hear 450 buckets, but those are each one is handmade.
Correct.
It's a lot of time. How much time would you say it takes you per bucket to put it together?
Uh Man, with this, so I put rope handles on it. I put my own stickers on it. I clean the stickers off of the ones that I get for free from restaurants. But for the boat show, I just didn't I can't get enough free ones fast enough for the boat show. So I had to buy a bunch,
Hmm.
which I don't really prefer doing because, it's better for the environment to keep the ones from the restaurants out of the
Yep.
landfills and repurpose them. But as far as advertising is concerned, you got to do what you got to do. So,
Right.
yeah, had to buy a bunch, and so this time I had a bunch of different colors, and I had 40 pink ones, and those were the first to go. They were gone instantly.
Sure. Eric Myers took as many as you let him take to go put on his
He still hasn't gotten his. I saved him a pink one. I saved him actually two pink ones, but a
Okay.
little girl that was in the neighborhood walking her dogs came by, and she talked me out of one.
Uh-oh.
So
Oh,
yeah,
you can't say no
yeah.
to a little kid with big eyes asking for something that they
Oh
really
man, no
want.
joke. She was like, "Oh, can I have a pink bucket?" I was like, "Oh."
It'll be much easier to disappoint Eric Myers telling him that he can't have a pink bucket than it is a little girl who's begging for a pink bucket.
That
Um,
sees me every day in the neighborhood.
right, yeah, and just real quick for those that are listening that have never gotten to hear your voice before, tell us a little bit about what it is that you do professionally, and then what your real passion is for fishing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So fishing for mortgages, I'm always fishing for mortgages. I do mortgages for a living. I work for a company called Atlantic Coast Mortgage. We're one of the prominent mortgage companies in the area. And I think we were top five regionally just recently. So, yeah, it's awesome. We do a lot of different product options for investors and for first-time home buyers, for jumbo loans, the whole gamut. We can
Right.
usually handle it.
Well, with home prices these days, I mean, dang near every house you'd want to live in is is almost a jumbo loan these days. So it's good to know that you've got all that in your Rolodex.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And then of course the passion, spearfishing. Spearfishing, you can probably see in my background, I've got a monster cubera.
Oh yeah.
That's my biggest cubera to date. And then I got that in Costa Rica on a really good dive, fun dive.
That's awesome. I know we've talked about spearfishing several times on the show, as well as bluefin tuna fishing and cobia fishing. We've gotten the chance to run into each other out in the water many, many times. So I've gotten to see firsthand how exciting it can be, to spear one of these big sport fish. But tell us, you had a recent trip down to Costa Rica back in February. Where were you in Costa Rica? Where'd you stay, and what were your dives like down there?
Yeah, I always go out of Jaco, Costa Rica. It's a little surf town. Some people think it's a little too touristy, but the part that we stay in is right in the downtown area, and it's not as touristy as people tend to think.
Hmm.
But yeah, we launch a panga right off the beach. We
That's
head
cool.
out. The first day we looked for tuna, but had a really hard time getting to them. We found the tuna, but there were probably 10 or 15 sport fish boats in that same mix
Mm.
on just one school. And they really don't care about divers whatsoever. And the weird thing is they run over top of the spinner dolphin, which is what the tuna follow. They run over right over the top of them and they drag, 6, 8 lines.
Hmm.
But every time we had a chance to get in, the tuna were super deep. And when you dive down on them, they would just dive deeper. So we only ended up getting one tuna that day. So the second day we made another solid effort to go after the tuna. And then we got into them really, really good. So that was the first 2 days. And that was a lot of fun. It's yellowfin. You head off the tuna or you head off the dolphins, jump in, take a dive immediately. Your heart rate's through the roof.
Oh
You know,
gosh.
so your number one priority is to have a low heart rate when you're doing a dive, but you're sitting on the side of the boat and the boat's revving and it's like dive, dive, dive. And you jump in, punch a dive immediately. Here come all the dolphin. They're like squeaking in your ear as loud as they can, and then you're sitting there waiting for them to pass for the dolphin. And it wasn't a massive school of dolphin, so the tuna were either on the right side of them or the left side of them or underneath, and it's just pure luck getting to that side. But yeah, we cracked some good ones. Couple of equipment failures also. So I shot a nice one, probably maybe 60 pounder,
That's a nice
and
yellowfin.
yeah, there were some big ones mixed in there. I saw my first 300+ pound yellowfin off in the distance.
Do
The sickles,
they actually exist that big?
oh my gosh, dude, there were some 150 to 200 pounders, and then this one was just glaring bigger than the
Oh
rest of them. And it was probably 40 feet away, so just out of shooting distance. And it was moving slowly enough for me to have, if it was closer, I easily would have gotten a shot on him.
man.
But it clearly ran the roost. I mean, it was just lumbering through like it owned the joint. And the sickles on those Pacific yellowfins are really high,
Hmm.
and the sickles, for people that don't know, are the basically the dorsal fin, if you will, and the bottom fin on these
Hmm.
tunas. They both were up so high and tall that they were tailing back past the tail of the tuna.
Hold on. Okay, so I'm trying to visualize this. I've seen what you're talking about before, where like the sickles they taper and they get really thin at the end to where they kind of like are almost like sh
Correct.
streamers in the wind as the fish is like
Yes.
swimming by. So you're saying that those were longer than the fish's
Yep.
tail.
Yep.
Oh,
I mean,
jeez.
this thing was an absolute monster.
Oh, dude,
Yeah, it's
that's
crazy.
awesome. And it's cool too to see that in nature. So like I was just recently, same time that you were in Costa Rica, I was in Alabama hunting with my good friend Butch Theory, the owner and operator and a partner with Joe Baya of Great Days Outdoors, which is what this podcast comes from. Um, and we were watching this giant buck that we, he'd been tracking since October on the trail cameras, and he got to lay him down, his buck of a lifetime on his property, and a giant 8 point that measured like 136. But what was really interesting, like you said, how you saw that big tuna ruling the roost, which means like all
Yeah.
the other fish around it, like if he was making way towards like, the bait to eat or whatever, I'm sure they were kind of getting out of the way and giving him, the right of way, so to speak. I saw the same thing with that big buck. When he walked into the field, there was like 6 or 7 does and two other bucks, and they all just like once the king was there, they knew it, and you watched their behavior
Yeah.
change, and they cleared out of the way to let him through. Anyways, I got sidetracked thinking about that. But so
No, you're good.
tell me about this equipment failure. How did that come into play when you guys were diving?
Oh man, TSA.
Oh, like the TSA.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah. So I didn't realize it, but they check your equipment. It's spearfishing equipment or fishing equipment, so they're going to check that for sure. Especially when it goes through, they see probably a bunch of big arrows in the case, so they want to look at that.
Right.
And then also I keep my dive vest in there, so it's got a big CO2 canister inside the dive vest, which you're allowed to send over, take with you in a flight, but
Right.
they still want to check it. As long as it's with this safety vest, they allow it to go through as far as CO2 is concerned.
Right.
but they're going to check it. And I try to keep it as organized and as easily put together as possible because I know they're not going to know how they took it apart. But there's a line release. So your shooting line is connected to the back of your spear, and then it ends up being connected the other side to your float line.
Mm-hmm.
But you wrap it a couple of times from the back end of the gun to the front end of the gun. So when you shoot it off, there's a line release that when you pull the trigger, the line release loosens and it lets all your line go.
Okay.
And that line release was bent and I didn't know it. So when you shoot it, the line release was getting stuck and it held on to my
No.
shooting line.
So
And it's
you,
300-pound stainless steel cable. And the first tuna I shot probably nicked the line from that line release, and we got that one in the boat. The second tuna I shot a few dives later finished the job and ripped that 300-pound stainless steel cable clean in half. And
jeez.
so I've got it on video. You shoot the tuna, and you see the tuna kind of going in circles, and it was a really good shot. It was a spine shot. But then I come up and I look back down and my line is in my hand and I
Oh
got no
no.
tuna. So he took off with $150
Oh,
spear and slip tip, and the tuna went
I
down
was
to Davy Jones's locker.
I was waiting for the part where you said that you just like found the courage to just pull out your dive knife and hold your breath for 4 minutes
That's
and
right.
die and get down there and stuff.
That's right. I dove down to 3,000 feet with my dive
Man,
knife in my teeth,
sheesh.
and I
I
and
mean,
I pulled him back up.
it's so unfortunate to have an equipment failure, whether it's like you're hooked up to the Kobe of a lifetime and your line parts and you look and realize that you lost one of your ceramic eyelets out of your, guide or you cast it and it got like wrapped twice around the bail. I've had all
Oh
kinds of
yeah,
weird things happen like that. Or
the wind knot.
yeah,
That's
the
the
wind
worst.
knot. I'm trying to think of some other silly things. Like you pull a hook and then you reel up and realize that like somehow your hook point had gotten really dull or the barb had gotten bent. I mean, it's just such a good reminder to do thorough checks of everything. And this kind of is a perfect segue into what I want to talk about next. We're going to talk about three things in total. Obviously, your dive trip sounds like it was epic. I want to
Yeah.
shift into gear safety and checklists, and then we're also going to talk about the weather. But when it comes to gear, tackle failures, any failures of any type, and safety, um, you're one of those guys who is religious about your checks and your safety processes. So on a dive like this in Costa Rica, where you're on a boat that isn't yours, like you still got your safety checks. So like for your diving, what is like top to bottom your safety checklist before you ever get in the water to go and try to shoot something?
Yeah, for sure. You're always going to have a dive flag in the boat. Make sure that dive flag is up. Um, and then I go through top to bottom, mask, snorkel, got my weight belt on, and the weight belt goes on after you put the dive vest on. And the reason why is because if you ever need to get rid of your weight belt, that needs to be able to fly off freely.
Hmm.
And what's cool about the dive belt is the dive belt has a reverse latch.
Okay.
So your latch is kind of sprung forward, where like if your regular dress belt, you put that on, your latch goes in and it's pulled. But it's set up so that if you yank on that tag end of your dive belt,
Hmm.
the latch springs forward and it's completely out of the way. So you let go of it
Comes right off.
and it comes right off.
Got it.
And that makes you more buoyant, obviously. Most
Right.
people are overweighted. And we'll get to that here in a little bit as far as overweight is concerned. But yeah, so dive belt goes on last. That's the very last piece. And then of course on my dive belt I have a knife, and then I've got a reel with about 150 foot of line.
Hmm.
So if I am down and something happens and or my reel on my gun gets stuck, I've got my line on on my belt that I can clip to it and still safely get
Ah,
to the surface.
got it.
So that's safety. And then of course a knife on my leg. I always have a knife on my leg. So and I always practice getting to it. Um, the leg knife is my easiest go-to because it's out of the way. I keep it on the inside of my calf
Hmm.
because usually your lines and your float line or your shooting line or whatever is on the outside of your body.
Hmm.
So you don't want it to catch on your leg.
Smart. Yeah.
So you keep it on the inside.
Hmm.
If you've got your line on the inside of your legs anyways, you're already dealing with problems.
Right.
Um, so you always want to try to keep that line management is extremely crucial. I see some of these guys just even in the bay in their videos, and they just have the worst
Spider
line
webs.
management. Oh yeah, that's it. The spider web. They're just yanking a 40, 50 pound cobia into themselves with their line wrapped around their arms, wrapped around their head, is wrapped around their snorkel. And they don't realize the strength. Give you a real quick example is, my buddy Garrett really likes to use his pole spear, and he came across a 55 pounder and got a good meat shot on it, but not a kill shot.
Right.
And that thing immediately drug him upside down, and he's holding on just to this pole spear. And it immediately drug him upside down, started ripping his mask off, and he's got the video of it as well.
Wow.
And you could see his hands struggling trying to get the belt reel onto it, where he should have had it, obviously hindsight, hooked up to the back of the or to the strap of the pole spear in the first place.
Right.
But he didn't, and also probably wasn't expecting to see that big of a fish, because when he got in, we saw a couple of smaller ones.
Hmm.
And the smaller ones put up a fight, but not, you can get a good forward shot and control them a little bit. But a 50, 60 pound cobia, man, it's going to rough you up if you don't get a good kill shot on it, especially if a meat shot top shoulder. That fish has every single ounce of energy it needs,
Right.
and they swim for a living. So,
Right. Right. Yeah. If
yeah,
you've
he
never
ended up
seen,
losing that fish and the pole spear. So, if
oh,
anybody's out
geez,
there and
finds
catches a 60-pound fish with
with
a
a pole
pole
spear
spear
in
in it,
it.
it's my
Yeah.
buddies.
That's crazy. And
And it sucks for the fish, and it sucks for the pole spear, and it sucks for the
right.
diver, it sucks for everything all around.
Yeah. I mean, spear fishing and spear diving, we've talked about this many times, the difference in how near you are to a fatal incident is so much greater than fishing off of a boat or a kayak or from shore. Um, and I mean, how long have you been spearfishing now? Like how many years, if you think about it?
Uh, Seriously, spearfishing probably the last 12 years. And I got into it probably about 18 years ago.
Hmm.
And, spade fish, Chesapeake light tower,
Right.
stuff like that. That's how I learned. That's how just about everybody learns. It's one of the easiest ways to get into it.
Hmm.
You don't really need any fancy equipment. But yeah, over the last probably 10 to 12 years, I absolutely lost my mind getting into it.
Yeah.
Um, you get free dive certified, and you really learn, wow, this is the kind of diving I can actually do
Right.
and be safe and be good. And then you go offshore and you learn about wahoo and Kubera snappers, and I mean, big pelagic fish, tuna fishing, the whole nine, and you just get addicted to it. It's
And you're like,
it's
wow,
taken over my life.
I can actually do this. This is pretty cool.
Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical. Black Buffalo products are intended for adults age 21 and older who are consumers of nicotine or tobacco.
If you're 21 or older and use nicotine or tobacco, it's time you charge ahead to Black Buffalo, America's only credible smokeless tobacco alternative. Black Buffalo dips just like the real thing, but without the tobacco leaf or stem. Get it now at Wawa, Circle K, Sheetz, Love's, Pilot, Racetrack, and many more that you can see on their store locator at blackbuffalo.com. Black Buffalo Tobacco Alternative is everything you love about dip, nothing you don't. And in 12 years, I'm sure you've seen some incidences, some injuries and things like that. But obviously the fatality aspect, you had your first encounter with that recently, and I want to be reverent when we talk about this because obviously someone lost their life, and we never want to see that in any sort of fishing excursion ever. And the ways to prevent it are to control the things that we can control. Our pre-flight checklist, so to speak, of, do I have all my safety gear? Do I have my buddy? Have I double checked my redundancies? Have I looked at the weather? Do I have my dive flag? All that stuff. But I do want to hear, what was this encounter like, for you? And what would you say were the lessons learned that if somebody, is in a similar situation would do differently to avoid a fatal incident?
Yeah, so I mean, I promote the dive vest a lot. But the dive vest is a safety feature that does not, I mean, by any stretch of any imagination, does not take over your dive buddy.
Mm.
And your dive buddy is somebody that's in the water with you, somebody that can help you out in crazy circumstances, somebody that can say, "Hey, don't do that,"
Right.
when you shouldn't be doing that. Somebody that can help drag a fish up if you need help, or somebody
Hmm.
that can see you struggling to get to the surface, come down and get you. So, diving alone, I see people do it, and in the Chesapeake Bay, for all intents and purposes, a lot of the times you could be considered diving alone because the water is so murky. Once you get down past 15, 20 feet, your dive buddy can't see you.
Mm.
But at the same time, you got to stay well within your limits. If you're a minute and a half diver, you don't want to be diving more than a minute in Chesapeake Bay.
Right.
If you're a 45-second diver, you don't want to be diving for more than 30 seconds in the Chesapeake Bay.
Hmm.
So you really got to, know your limits, and don't, there's no fish on planet Earth. There's no gun on planet Earth that's worth your life. So I can't stress that enough. Let the
Yeah.
gun go, let the
Yeah.
fish go.
Yeah.
It sucks, but you make it back to your family.
Yeah.
I was diving in Florida. Buddy of mine, guy named Jack. He's got a really good YouTube channel called Captain Jack Spiro. And I was down in Fort Lauderdale, hit him up and said, "Hey, look, I've got a little bit of time. I don't know what your situation is, but can we get out for a dive?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'm actually going out of town, so Wednesday evening after work, I can get us out on my jet ski." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, easy dive." I was only there for a little bit of time, just enjoying some warm weather. And so we got situated. We dipped out around 4:45. The sun was going to be going down probably around 7:20. And we got out to like some 90-foot areas. And the first dip in the water, I look down and there's, 5, 6 bull sharks hanging around. Two of them immediately come after me. And, it's counterintuitive with bull sharks. You actually have to charge them the way they're charging you. So I swam at him. You put your hand out
You're
to try to
crazy.
redirect him. And yeah, I mean, it's not like you can just pop out of the water immediately. You can't just do a somersault and get in.
Right. So you
So
don't you
you
don't play
just stay
chase with
calm.
them. You go head to head with them, and did
Yeah,
you put your hand on its nose and redirected it?
that's the plan, but I didn't have to. Probably about
Oh,
2 feet from my hand, he finally turned and realized I'm not food, and I was coming at him about as aggressively as he was coming at me. So yeah, I mean, you turn away and try to swim away. Now you're fish food. That's what their prey typically do. They're like, "Holy crap!" They get
and
out
they
of
run.
town
Yeah.
and they run. So,
And you're like, no,
um,
I'm Michael Hosang, mother trucker, get out of my way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I said. That's what I
Yeah.
said. Or I said, "Please don't eat my hand
Right.
and let me redirect you."
Right.
Um,
I'm sure you were
that's
very
that's
polite.
usually the doc going. Yeah, exactly. I'm trying to be really nice to him. Hey, little buddy, what are you doing? Maybe you don't eat me today.
Yeah.
Um, So yeah, said to Jack, I was like, "Hey man, immediately sharks everywhere." He's like, "That sucks. We're not going to get any fishing like that." So we didn't even bother diving on that spot. We got out and checked a couple of different spots, and it wasn't too terribly fishy that day. So he's like, "All right, well, let's go inshore since we don't have a ton of daylight left." And there's like this barge area
Hmm.
or rubble area rather. That's probably, I guess he was saying, maybe a mile and a half to 2 miles long of just rubble and
Right.
about 50, 60 foot. And we did a first drift, didn't see a whole lot. We got one small rainbow runner. Um, and then we started a second drift. You go all the way back up current, and the current just was driving us perfectly down that same rubble pile. So
Oh,
it
that's
was
cool.
working out nicely.
Yeah.
And so how we're doing it is you got one guy at the end of the line that you're holding on to the jet ski with, and then there's a flasher set that goes down to about maybe 35 feet, maybe 40 feet. And then you know, nobody's hitting the bottom and hanging out on the bottom because the current was too much. So if you stay on the bottom, your dive buddy at the top's drifting away from you.
Got
And
it.
then when you come up, you're going to be way too far away. So we decided that we're just going to do, drifts. So go down to about, 45, 50 feet, look around. If there's something shootable, great. If not, come back up and
Right.
everybody's drifting together. And yeah, so then about midway through that second drift, another boat comes up while my buddy Jack was down. There was two Cuban guys looking for a friend of theirs and seeing if we'd seen him. And I'm yelling at them, "Alto, alto, mi amigo está aquí," in my Spanglish, and because they still had their engine in gear, and they were really close to me where I was, and so Jack wasn't too far off when he came up, and so they did shut their engine off. They took it out of gear, and they were talking to us saying that their dive buddy was missing, and at first we thought he was missing off of their boat. And so, but then we realized he was out there diving by himself earlier in the day and was missing.
No.
Yeah. And
Solo dive.
Yeah, solo diving, no friends, no nothing. And yeah, we hadn't seen anybody or his boat or anything. And later we found out that the reason they started the search was because they found his boat hitting up against the jetty that had drifted away from him. And yeah, so those guys left and kind of kept looking, and then we were like, all right, well, Jack was like, all right, well, look, here's the deal, man. The sun's going down. We can probably squeeze one more drift out of here and try to get one more fish, because we only had one fish in the cooler, and it was a small rainbow runner. And we'd seen some permit and some yellow jacks, so we're hoping they would come back through. So yeah, we went back up drift, and I punched a dive, maybe about a minute or so, and looking around, didn't see anything. And he comes back up, and I literally said to him, I was like, wouldn't it be the craziest thing if we found that guy? That would just be, absolutely insane. And he's like, yeah, all right, well, I'm going to do, one last dive. And we had agreed to shorter dives because it was just the two of us. We're on the jet ski. The current was ripping.
No
And so
reason
he's
to
down.
push a boundary, right?
Exactly. Yep. And we were only in 50, 60 feet of water, and it was not murky, but it wasn't super clear either. But yeah, he does his last dive, and then he's down. I'm waiting, and I'm looking at my watch. I'm like, well, he's going a little bit over, so maybe he's finding a fish. And at this point, I'm like pulling the jet ski, trying to hold it, in place, because you don't really like. You're not going to let go of the jet ski, but at the same time, you want to make sure your dive buddy's okay.
Yeah.
So I'm waiting, and I'm like, all right, well, maybe I'll do a shallow dive, holding on to the line, and then follow the flashers down and hold on to the flashers at the bottom and look around for them. And so I take a deep breath, and I'm getting ready to do a shallow dive. And just as I do that, he comes up yelling, and he's like, Michael. And like right away, I think sharks. I'm thinking he maybe shot something. He's getting accosted by the bulls. And so I'm like, what is it? What's going on? And I was like, shark. He's like, no, I found him. I was like, holy crap.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And
That just gave me chills.
Jack's a diver that's far and above better than I am. I mean, he's a 2.5 minute dynamic diver. So
wow.
He's an unbelievable diver. And he actually pulled that guy up on his dive. And this guy was probably a 250-pound guy, dry.
Dang.
And yeah, he'd been passed away for several hours. It was pretty clear. And yeah, I mean, from the video, the only thing that we could surmise really was that he had gone down, maybe shot something, because his spear had been shot, and the line and the spear itself looked like it was caught in the rocks, and his gun was floating. And then you want to talk about needle in a haystack. I mean, we're in the ocean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And his dive, he literally dove down right on top, above the gun that was floating.
Wow.
And then when he levels off and he looks up, there's the guy right there, kind of hung up in his own line. And yeah, it was just a crazy situation, man. It's just one of those things where, like I said, needle in a haystack, got super lucky that on that last dive, last drift, last drop, and he landed right on top of the guy and had enough gas in him to bring him to the surface. From there we called the Coast Guard and got them out, and it was dark. It was getting dark. The sun had dropped by that point, and the sharks around, and so I stayed in the water to try to fend off any sharks that would try to come around. But um, it was dark by the time the Coast Guard got out there. We're on a freaking jet ski. It got hairy, but the bottom line is the guy was diving alone, and as
Yeah.
unfortunate as it is, at the very least, we got him back to his family.
Right.
His daughter ended up hitting us up on Instagram when I made a post. I made a post, like, please don't dive alone, you guys. We found somebody today, and it's just as unfortunate as possibly could be. And
Right.
you always want to post for any fisherman, or spear fisherman or whatever, fair winds following seas, when something like that happens, because it sucks no matter what. You don't want to lose anybody. And she lost a father, and he's not getting back to his family. But if he had a dive buddy or a dive vest, a safety vest, it's highly probable that he would have gotten back to his family. Because even in a shallow water blackout, if somebody's able to come get you and bring you back to the surface,
there's a chance to revive you.
there's a chance to revive you. But at the same time, when you black out underwater, your body goes limp, all your air goes out, but your mouth is shut. Your body automatically will lock up.
Okay.
And the very first thing that you do when you come to is take a breath. So if you're underwater, you're going to immediately drown.
Got it.
But if your buddy is able to get you to the surface, so if you black out underwater, if you've ever taken a safety course, you clamp the jaw and the top of the head, and you basically clamp them shut, and you swim your buddy up holding onto his head.
Oh, interesting.
And so that way, when you get to the surface, then you underhook the arms and the body, and you lean the head back over your head. And then you blow across the eyes, and you start calling their name. Blow across the eyes, call name, blow across the eyes, call name. And what that does is it brings the senses, and they're no longer in trouble, and that they can take a breath, basically.
Wow.
And that's usually when they come to. So when they come to and they take that huge breath, they're not going to be inhaling water because their dive buddy brought them to the surface. Their airway is clear, and they're going to breathe in air. So that's why I always say these safety courses, these free dive safety courses, are extremely important, especially in our area where the visibility is awful.
Right.
And always have a dive buddy.
Yeah, it's really driving home the gravity of these situations and how important it is to be excited about going spearfishing, be excited about going fishing on a boat, be excited about going fishing in a kayak, even be excited about going fishing from shore. It doesn't matter what you're doing in any of those situations. Your safety checklist is paramount because accidents happen when we least expect it, and they're almost always tied to something preventable had we been doing a safety checklist or following the appropriate protocols, which really segues nicely into the third and final thing that I wanted to talk about, which I want to give a shout out to my good buddy Ross. He's in the market for a little bit bigger boat and was asking some really good questions about interpreting weather data. Turn your dock into more than just a place to park your boat with Slipski's Dorado Oasis cover. Engineered for both beauty and protection, the Dorado Oasis transforms your dock into a shaded, all-weather living space, perfect for relaxing by the water or entertaining friends. Built from marine-grade aluminum and premium fabric, it also provides year-round protection from sun, rain, and debris. Whether you're lounging dockside or keeping your boat covered and ready to go, Slipski delivers comfort, convenience, and peace of mind. Slipski, think outside the boathouse. Visit slipski.com. And you and I share a similar sized boat, center console in the 25-foot range. And, we're not a 32 Contender. We're not a 36 Freeman. We're not a Sportfish, so our windows of accessibility to even the bay, but especially like nearshore wrecks and, windmills and beyond is really tied tightly to, a weather forecast. And what I learned from talking to Ross and even had to remember for myself going back, 15 years to when I first started boating is that looking at a forecast across multiple different apps and interpreting that and understanding how land, tide, wind is all going to come together throughout the day and create a sea state is not just something that, is readily apparent, right? So I'm curious
Yeah.
from your perspective, maybe give us your favorite weather apps. Like, what do you like to look at from a weather apps perspective? And then when it comes to your 25-foot class center console and your typical day on the bay, what is it that you're looking for as sort of a threshold for, I'm gonna either make sure that I'm back in by a certain time, or man, I'm probably just not gonna punch out and go. So what are those apps and those thresholds for you?
Yeah, I'll start by saying the older I get, the flatter it's got to be for me to go out there because I just don't like getting beat up. And I used to just send it, you know.
Yeah. Well, let me
But
pause right there and plug Brandon Overall with 110 Marine and Justin Trapani with Seakeeper Ride Systems because by far, you talk about vertical acceleration reduction, that system does it. So, anyways, as you were.
yeah, yeah. So I use a couple of different apps. I'll use Buoy Weather. I'll use Fish Weather. Those are my two quick primary ones.
Okay.
And then I go to Current. I forget the app now. Um, but I'll look it up here in a second. But that way it tells me the current because of course spearfishing.
Right.
Um, and then I'll use Windy app. Windy app, I feel like around here for whatever reason is usually the least accurate.
Hmm.
And I'll take buoy weather and I'll take fish weather, and I'll if they're both the same, then I'm like, okay, I'm good to go.
Got it.
But if one is worse than the other, I'm going to go with the worst usually.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, if it's southwest around here, especially for the bay, you're usually good to go up to 15, even sometimes 20 if you're just going like the first, second island, like we talked about earlier. Um, but yeah, I mean,
And why is
around
that?
here,
Why is it that Southwest for the Bay is good? And does the tide, whether it's incoming or outgoing, have any bearing on the sea state?
yeah, absolutely. So if it's incoming tide, so anytime the wind is clashing with the current, you're going to potentially have white caps. It's going to be
Okay.
a little bit more choppy. And of course, the higher the wind, the bigger the whitecaps. And the faster the current, the higher the wind, the more choppy it's going to be. But southwest around here in the bay, the land is blocking the wind. So the wind doesn't have enough time to really push the water into bigger swells and eventual bigger
Ah.
waves.
So like the sort of kinetic energy of the time that the wind has on the water before it can create a wave height, the wind is blocking it because it's coming out of the south. So if I see southwest, that means the wind is coming from the southwest, not blowing towards the southwest. That would be a northeast wind.
Right.
Okay.
And then you got northeast winds. Those are the most fun.
Those are the ones that make
Yeah.
us say, okay, today's a yard work day.
Exactly. Today I'll be on my bike doing some training rides.
Right, right.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. Today's like boat maintenance day or whatever.
Yeah. And those are, I know those are, quote unquote silly questions to ask for those who've been boating forever, but we all got on a boat and turned a key for the first time, whenever that journey started. And so this topic of discussion is really for the recreational anglers and boaters who maybe this is their first upcoming season on the water. These are good questions to ask to understand, there's a billion things out there you could look at, for me, one of the things that I started to learn over the years was to not just look at my city's weather, but to also look at other cities' weather. So, for example, as a bay fisherman, I will look at when I'm thinking about thunderstorm potential, I'll look at the Virginia Beach forecast, I'll look at the Hampton forecast, and I'll look at the Eastern Shore forecast. And then I'll look at those hour by hour forecasts to try to triangulate when each of those is predicting that thunderstorms are going to start. So, for example, if I see that, well, Virginia Beach looks completely clear all afternoon till 4 o'clock, and then I see that the Eastern Shore looks completely clear till the afternoon at 4 o'clock, but I see that Hampton's predicting thunderstorms at noon, and I know that the wind is out of the southwest. I know there's a strong potential that those storms that crop up in Hampton could blow right across the Bay Bridge Tunnel prematurely
No question
before.
they will.
Right. So it's like you just kind of get familiar with understanding that the weather is actually more simple than it is complex. It's, wind direction, timing, and then you just kind of think about those things logically. There's always the variables, there's always the weird freak things that happen. But more often than not, if you think about a direction something's coming from and you think about where you're going to be and you just use some basic logic, you can kind of, avoid some thunderstorms. And I speak as a person who's gotten it wrong more times than I'd like to admit and been stuck in those thunderstorms, hiding out under the Fourth Island Bridge, and it's not fun. So take those things seriously and don't look at the weather through a straw, look at it through a wider lens. That would be my, I guess, tip of the day when it comes to thunderstorms. But for you with wind, when you start to go maybe outside of the bay a little bit towards like the mouth of the Cape or maybe like the Yellow Buoy area, now what kind of wind factors are you saying? Even if it's out of the southwest or maybe starts to puff up out of the southeast in the afternoon, when do those kind of conditions out there tend to get uncomfortable for you?
Yeah, usually for me on my boat, if it's over 15, it's unlikely I'm going to venture too far out. I'm okay going to the yellow cans over 15, but not much over 15 because no matter what the wind direction is, the farther you go off the coast, the more opportunity that swell has got to build and, the chop has got to build. And one way or another, you're going to have to fight that either out or on the way back, depending on wind direction. And it
Right.
just makes an uncomfortable trip, especially if you're sight fishing and you're going to be in a tower.
Right.
You're the pendulum up there, so you're just, yeah, exactly.
Rocking
You're swinging
around.
back and forth. And
Yeah.
if you don't have like a really stable boat, like, I've got a sea hunt. So in a following sea, that bad boy leans,
Oh
you
yeah.
know?
My boat
So,
too.
and I've
Yep.
got trim tabs too. So I'm up there and I don't have a seat keeper, So and I don't have the automatic trim tabs. I remember a podcast you were talking about with those trim tabs. It sounds awfully fancy, but
It's dreamy.
I'm up there working the trim tabs like I'm playing a video game.
Yep. That's exactly
It's
it.
like A, B, A, B, A, B, up, down, up, down.
Yeah, it's like you've unlocked a new level. Hold on for your
Yep.
dear life. Nobody loves a following sea, especially, for me, I'm 6'3", 240. It's like I don't want to be up there with another guy my size in a following sea. It's not a fun feeling. But I'm also curious, and again, this is for the new boater. So fish weather, for example, or windy, or any of the apps that show the period between swells, and it's normally measured in seconds. How do I interpret that? So, like, if I'm looking, let's just take the Chesapeake Light Tower, for example. Maybe I select that on the map in fish weather, and it pulls up a graph and it shows me hour by hour, wind, sustained and max gusts. And then it also shows me this, um, you know, seconds between, what does that actually mean? And how do I measure that when I look at it as what the actual, ride is going to be like?
Yeah. So the seconds are definitely the most important for me because, if it's going to be long, that between each swell,
Hmm.
that's going to be, and even if it's a big swell, let's say it's a 3 foot swell, but it's 10 seconds. That means every 10 seconds that swell's going to come up. I
Okay.
always shorten it by 2 seconds
Right.
by my own personal calculations because I don't believe any weather apps.
Right.
Um, so I'm like, okay, well, if it says 10, it's probably going to be 8. If it says 3, it's probably going to be 1.
Right.
The seconds, that's just, if you think about it, just count 1, 2, 3, swell. 1, 2,
Okay.
3, swell. So if it's 3 seconds and the swell is 3 foot, that's 3 feet every 3 seconds. That's big.
Right.
But if
That's going
it's
to be
three
very
seconds,
uncomfortable.
yeah, if it's 3 feet every 10 seconds, that's a long, slow swell.
Okay.
Obviously, you can't go 30 miles an hour because now you're jumping swells, but
Right.
you can get out perfectly fine. It could be super flat, as far as chop is concerned, nice
Mhm.
calm seas, even with big swell. You could have an offshore storm and you
Mhm.
can have 4 foot swell at 12 seconds. You're still going to be perfectly fine. In fact,
Right.
that I like that. I
Yeah.
like that, especially if it's sunny and we're sight fishing.
Oh yeah.
Big swell, big long slow swell.
That's the
You
dream.
could see that fish 10 swells away.
It's like
You
looking
know?
at them in an aquarium. Now earlier you were talking about how tide and wind will impact the sea state. And I've seen these times where I'm looking at fish weather and I get confused because I'll look at a day and I'll see, I'll look at the time period that I'm thinking about going fishing. So maybe 6 a.m. till 2 or 3 p.m. And I'll see that from like 6 a.m. till, noon, it looks great. It's like 2.2, feet at like 8 seconds. And I'm thinking, oh, this is great. And then at 2 p.m., it still shows like now it'll jump to like maybe 2.6 or 2.8, but then it goes to that 3 or 4 second range like immediately, like from 2 o'clock to three o'clock, the interval changes dramatically. How is that possible? And why is that?
Yeah, because you've got the conflicting current with the wind now. So
Oh,
your
so
tide, especially in the
literally,
Chesapeake Bay,
so the
it
tide
flips fast.
changing. So that's reflecting that the time that the tide is changing. Boom, now all of a sudden. So that would probably be what? Like, could you give me an example? I know we might have to put our thinking caps on, but like, how could it change that dramatically? What would the wind direction be, and what would the tide change be that would cause that to happen?
All right, so spearfishing, for example. What's a good example? All right, so if I've got east wind and I know that I use fish currents, by the way, it finally downloaded in my head as to what that was.
Yeah.
So fish currents is one of the more accurate ones that I use,
Okay.
but it still can be a little bit off. So if I want to dive the bridge, then I'm going to go out ahead of what fish current says it's going to be slack tide.
Okay.
But for slack tide, if you got incoming current and it's supposed to be slack at say, noon,
Hmm.
right? I'll get out there around 11 and I'll tool around and maybe look around for cobia or whatever, or I'll just go up and down the bridge, see if I see any sheeps up, things like that until the current starts to slow down. And now as it's slowing down, you can still dive, but again, the older I get, the nicer I want it to be when I'm doing my activities.
Right.
So I like it when it's nice and slack.
Yeah.
And so if you've got east wind and incoming current, the water is going to well up in the bay a little bit longer
Okay.
because it's the east wind is pushing that
Pushing.
incoming current into the bay. And then it'll almost it's hard to describe, but it'll almost hold the water where it is
Okay.
before it starts coming back out.
Right.
So
Right.
you'll have a little bit of a longer slack tide. So instead of 35 to 40 minutes, you might have an hour of slack tide. But when it switches, you've got east wind and the current, all that water that got welled up into the
Oh,
bay and
starting
got
to push
stuck in its
out.
place. Yeah, it'll start pushing out. So you think if you like hold a fish tank at one angle and like slowly get it to that one angle,
Yeah.
but then drop it back down flat again, all that water is going to come flying to the other
Rushing.
side of the fish tank.
Yeah.
It's the
It's
same example.
it's
And
like
and
the
when it switches hard.
hard. Yeah.
And if you still have that east wind coming in, it switches hard, and now you're going to start getting that conflicting current with a really hard moving tide
Right.
and that conflicting wind pushing against all of that. And now you got the white caps and you've got the
And
the
then
3 seconds instead of the 8 seconds.
you see that really impacting shallower areas quicker. So like if you're out by the 9 foot shoal area closer to the
Mm-hmm.
eastern shore, or you know, you're coming up towards like the Baltimore Channel on the north side where there's those flats there, you're going to see those that change really exaggerated. And as you were talking about that, like the analogy in my head was like the difference of like pushing somebody on a swing where you're standing still and just pushing them. Like that would be like the normal tide cycle. Like you push them, they swing up to the one end,
Right.
and then they gently swing back the other end. Whereas the example you're talking about is where like the run through push, where you go all the way through and fully extend your arms and push them. They're like that,
Yes.
the tide swings that much farther in one direction, and then there's that much more inertia coming back. That really kind of helps to paint a picture. And hopefully, this is for many of us, I'm sure this is a sort of 101 weather conversation. But for those of you that are, venturing out for the first time, this season, or getting into a bigger boat where you're going to leave the inlets and and head out into the bay, this is really good information for you to have to start thinking about how to look at your weather apps, how to interpret that data. And again, do all your safety checks. That's still number one, but now, take that and combine it with your weather interpretation, and then you're going to make a good decision about when to go out and have a safe, fun time. And when in doubt, reach out to any of us on the social media, reach out to Mike, reach out to myself. There are no dumb questions. I think, unfortunately, there's a lot of bravado and a lot of ego when it comes to fishing. And there's probably some guys that are going to be like, oh, you goon, I can't believe you don't understand. But if you get that sort of response, just bag it, move on. But we will help you here in the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report. Go into the Facebook group, ask the questions. You'll get good information, and it'll help you have a fun, safe time. Mike, before we wrap up, any other weather tips that come to mind that would be good for a newer angler boater to think about going into this season?
Yeah, one other tip is to check out the cameras. So you've got the live cameras at the ocean front, and you can see what the sea state looks like if you're coming out of like Rudy Inlet or whatever.
Yeah,
There's a couple out of North Carolina as well that you can look at. So if you're going out of North Carolina also.
yeah,
And then, like you said, man, communication is key. If you've got friends that are already out there, call them up. Austin, he runs charters, so I call him all the time because half the time I get out, it's like 3 o'clock, trying
right.
to trying to duck out of work early, and
Yeah.
I'll call him. I'm like, yo, looks a smidge windy. How is it? And he'll be like, don't come. Or he'll be like, it's fine.
Shout out to Austin, who's a new dad. So excited to have him back on the show and hear what his
No.
experience has been like being a dad. I think I texted him congratulations, and he said something back funny like, "Yeah, I thought it would be fun to try." It's like that's Austin for you. We'll send it.
Yep.
We'll send it. Well, cool, man.
You know what? He should start a movie called Grumpy Young Men instead of Grumpy Old Men.
I concur, man. How is it? Awful. Stay on the dock.
Awful. Don't
Awful.
come.
Yeah.
I've caught one fish. I've been out here for 10 minutes. I'm like, but that's actually pretty good.
Yeah, he's so funny about that. But he's always a wealth of knowledge and like you, just super passionate. And I mean, I think I speak for all the cobia fishermen and really just the bay fishermen in general. This season upcoming, I think we're praying and hoping for something positive. I think last year it was disappointing to see the numbers, but hopefully this year is a little different.
Yeah. I again, if it's the northeast wind doesn't wear us out every single day like it did last year, and like honestly, so far it has done this year.
Hmm.
Hopefully it just, chills out and we get an okay summer, get some
Yeah.
nice, calm southwest winds, and
Yep.
we'll be out there freaking knocking them down.
I hope so too. And it'll be a neat experience and educational, journey for us as we get accustomed to having these windmill bases out there and how that's going to impact, whether positively or negatively, the fishery. So that
It's
whole
already positive on the fishery.
yeah, I mean
I
we've
can tell you
got
that from
bait.
being in the water.
Right. Yeah. And that's, I think about it from like a perspective of like the longer an establishment is there, the more people know about it. I think the same is true. It's like now we've got another full winter that those bases have been there to collect bait and growth and all that jazz. So we'll see what it's like. I mean, that might become the new spot to just like if you're going out, you might as well just go to the bases because that's where the life is. We'll
Yeah,
see.
I'll tell you the last, I don't know if we talked about it on the last podcast, but at the beginning of last summer, when I went out there, the two primary ones, they've got the growth, they've got sea bass everywhere, nice togs, flounder at the bottom,
Hmm.
and they're busy. And you would randomly on all the other ones, there wasn't much growth. There was a few fish, some triggers here and there,
Hmm.
the random like bait fish. By the end of the summer, every single one of those windmill posts were just completely inundated with sea bass. There was growth all over them,
Oh, wow.
big trigger fish, bait fish everywhere. I mean, yeah. So in just one summer, so
How
we're
much
talking
it
4 or 5
changed.
months,
Yeah.
it changed in unbelievably. So yeah, over the winter, I'm excited to get back out there and see what it looks like.
Me too. And I think we're going to see some interesting things. I know for me, one of my most unique catches towards the end of last season was fishing by one of the bases. We were flounder fishing, and the flounder bite was pretty good. You kind of had to work it. We'll talk about that another time. But I thought that I was snagged, and I pulled up really hard, and it was snagged. And I was like, oh no, I've probably caught somebody's old fishing pole. I just had this heavy dead weight, and I'm reeling it up, reeling it up, reeling it up, and I pull it up out of the water, and it's a giant granite boulder, like 10 pounds, but it wasn't just a boulder. It was an octopus holding the boulder. The octopus ate my flounder rig, and when I yanked up, he held onto the boulder for dear life. And as soon as I pulled him up out of the water, he let go of the boulder. I was like, "No way, an octopus!" It was the coolest thing ever. He was delicious.
Yeah.
It was the best octopus I've
Yeah, you
ever
know it.
had.
I love octopus.
Oh, dude, so good. Such a delicacy. But man, as we sign off here, if folks want to get in touch with you to either ask about, spear diving tips or questions about loans, that's obviously your specialty, mortgage loans. What's the best way they can contact you and follow you along on your journeys?
Yep, fishingformortgages.com. That's fishing, the number 4, mortgages.com, or call my cell 757-478-6122. And of course, I'm on Instagram, Fishing for Mortgages, and I'm on Facebook, Michael Hosang. Any of those apparatuses. And like you said earlier, no question is a dumb question. We all started somewhere. I
Yep.
learned how to spearfish from a buddy of mine shooting spadefish, and now I'm shooting 60-pound cuberas in 70 feet of water in caves. So, a lot has been learned and a lot still to learn.
Yep, absolutely. And again, our hearts go out to the life and the family that you guys helped to bring back home down there in Florida. I hope you guys, hear that story with reverence, but also take to heart the reminder of how important safety is in everything that you do fishing related. You do the right things, take your time, prepare, plan, communicate, and execute. You're going to have a lot of fun and you're going to do it safely and come home to your family. So thank you for the stories. Thank you for the tips and the wisdom. And I'm excited to see what 2026 does for us, man. It's going to be a good year.
Yeah, me too. Thanks again, man.
Absolutely. Folks, that's going to wrap up a really cool segment this week talking with Captain Michael Hosang aboard Fishing for Mortgages. I don't think there's an easier website to remember than Fishing, the number 4 mortgages. That's about as easy as it gets. Folks, stick around for a quick word from our sponsors, and we'll look forward to catching up with you guys next week. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. What you need are the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that captains all up and down the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, y'all, that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaner Cloth, text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep on whacking them and be safe out there.